See what's going on with Europe's fastest supercomputer, Jupiter.
Europe's fastest supercomputer has officially booted up in Western Germany as Europe looks to catch up to the U.S. and China in the race for AI.
Correct.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said the Jupiter supercomputer will open new possibilities for training AI models.
Yeah, China are probably the world's
he hailed the
leading
machine as a symbol of Germany's leading role in the technological revolution and said he hopes to turn the country into an AI nation. Here's a closer look at what is now the fourth fastest supercomputer in the world.
A fourth.
This is it.
Wow.
Jupiter, a supercomputer built at Jülich Research Center near Cologne.
Using
it's
NVIDIA
Europe's
tech.
fastest among its kind. That's according to U.S. tech giant NVIDIA. It supplied the chips and graphic processors in Jupiter. And they're capable of processing more than 1 trillion operations a second.
So that's those are the server
rooms. Most of those
rooms,
will
basically.
be for scientific forecasts and climate research. The U.S. is the global leader for hosting supercomputers, followed by China. Germany is now home to 41 of the 500 fastest machines. Supercomputers are attractive for doing business because of their extraordinary processing power, which is essential for artificial intelligence. Military applications need them too. But while supercomputers are known for using massive amounts of energy, Jupiter is reportedly more energy efficient.
That's good.
Well, for more, I'm joined now by Steve Conway. He's a senior analyst at Intersect 360 Research. That's a company specializing in high-performance computing and artificial intelligence, and he joins me from Minnesota. Steve, it's good to have you with us. At the inauguration of Jupiter, the German chancellor said that it will be able to help Europe to catch up in the global artificial intelligence race. Is that true?
It is very true, and this is really based on a dozen years of hard collaboration between the European Union and the member states, and this is the fourth fastest in the world, supercomputers in the world. Europe has more than anywhere else now. 5 of them compared to 4 for the U.S. and 1 for Japan. So
this guy's
Europe
annoying.
really,
I
in
hate
the past dozen years,
he makes a lot of weird
global leaders in this.
And then he tries to force America to comply with this weird He tries to force Americans
Steve, could you
in their own country to comply to his laws. It's like, what the fuck? Get out of here. You're in Germany, not America. Fuck off.
There are about more than 100 applications that have been chosen to run early on
pardon
on
my
this
French.
machine. And
But politicians like to exert their power
really important for society,
on other
predicting severe storms,
other nations' citizenry for some
healthcare, medicine, and then the whole,
especially when they're not even in their fucking jurisdiction.
Design and so forth, pharmaceuticals, just about anything you can think of that requires fast computing, but also some new applications because this is going to be one of the world's leading machines for AI. It's very, very, very powerful. It's right up there with the most powerful in the world.
I understand that Jupiter is the most energy efficient in the world, running entirely on renewable energy. Is that a game changer in terms of sustainability in an industry that we know is, hungry for power?
Yeah, and a lot of the credit there goes to Eviden, the company with Partech, a German company based in Munich, really helped to develop this supercomputer. If put it this way, these machines are so big that if they didn't advance in energy efficiency, they couldn't be built. Nobody could afford to build them or operate them. So a lot has happened to make them more energy efficient, and also to use the extra energy. It's going to be used to heat buildings in Jülich.
I understand that Jupiter is packed full of NVIDIA chips. I think it has 24,000 of them. These chips, of course, are American. it makes this computer still heavily reliant on U.S. tech. Is that a problem for the Germans and the Europeans?
Well, you have to remember that the base processors for this machine are European, not NVIDIA. There are plenty of NVIDIA chips on the AI side of this, but the fundamental
Yeah, I would assume
base supercomputer,
Yeah, I would assume they're using their own sort of
in
manufacturing
the center
process
of this
to make
is
their own
using
chips.
machines, or I'm sorry, is using processors.
Right, I mean, yeah, they may
processors,
outsource some stuff, but I would
that
assume
came out
they're
of the European
making sure
processor
that the
initiative.
most
So they are European.
Okay, let me ask you then, what should
the
European institutions do,
basically
in your
the
opinion, to
components that
become
they don't want
more
fucking
competitive
other
against the
people
US
to
in supercomputers,
right, they
and
want their own
avoid
components in there.
over-reliance on
Make sure no other
digital services
countries
from
know about
across
it,
the
obviously.
Atlantic?
For security reasons, right? Especially the chip.
I would say keep doing what
right,
you're
you want to
doing
build your own
in
chip.
Europe, because the progress, as I
And
said,
have
over
your
the last
own,
10 years has
right,
been
security chip
astounding
code and
to
everything.
really look at.
Because each
And
country
Europe
has their
right
own set
now
of different rule sets.
Is on a par with the U.S., on a par with Japan. We don't quite know what's happening in China, but Europe is really now one of the global leaders in supercomputing and in affiliated AI and some quant research also. So just keep going. And I think a lot of credit goes to the Commission and Euro HPC, which is the Commission's unit that works with the member states like Germany.
Okay. Well, I know a lot of Europeans are going to like that positive assessment, Steve. Steve Conway, Senior Analyst at Intersect 360 Research. We appreciate your time tonight, Steve. Thank you.
There it is. But yeah, for security reasons, they would, they would make make certain resources of their own because they don't want, they don't want to outsource those because that would bring a security risk. Anyways, on to the next. Why they're lying about nuclear energy. Right, they were just talking about renewable energy, which is a nice energy source.
This nuclear plant
but they're not always reliable, and you
1969,
can't just
the absolute
plop a
heyday
bunch of them
nuclear power in the US. Three new nuclear reactors were being turned on every year, each flip of the switch sending power to 500,000 homes. But it wasn't just the number of reactors being turned on in a year, it was how fast each one was being built. 5 years from breaking ground to turning it on, giving millions of people the benefit from one of the most profound and steady links in the entire field of economics. The more energy a country uses, the better off its people are. And the US just stopped, but it was years before this.
It was an accident at the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant. The nation and much
yes,
of
the
the world
first,
has been watching as this nuclear nightmare unfolds.
Chaos and confusion reigned as monitors tried to determine exactly how much radiation was released.
It started more than a decade before Chernobyl. So really what happened? Suddenly, plants that announced construction in the 70s started being delayed 9, 12, 20 years. Only 4 have been built in the US since 1996. This, what really hasn't been well explained before, is exactly what happened.
I got a frame.
You pour it out in the hand, and that's radioactive contamination. Very radioactive. That material that I just ate is not soluble in body fluids.
He actually did eat uranium. You can and live to tell about it, apparently. And it wasn't just him. The scientists and researchers at Los Alamos carried mounds of plutonium around in their lab coat pockets during the Manhattan Project.
Here it is, General Groves.
Yeah, they were just carrying that
Plutonium
shit
that went
around
into
them.
the first plutonium bomb was driven 220 miles to Los Alamos in a basic Army truck. Zero protective anything. These were the brightest scientists in the world. They were not reckless people, and they all died in old age of natural causes. But the message that made its way to the public was much, much different.
Correct. Because the only time it's like super radioactive to humans is if you actually like make it heat it up and like fucking put it into literally fucking heat it up and put it into someone.
But that fear ultimately increased the cost to build the time
you need to cause certain reactions for it to actually cause the
3 Mile Island didn't happen until
the bad
1979.
the radioactive
really,
material to harm you.
Ended up as the main input on a single formula
right, you need
that
some extra
determines how
stuff.
nuclear plants should be built, or if they should be built at all.
Looking at the alternatives for energy, nuclear fission must be stopped.
Why are we playing Russian roulette with the American people for nuclear plants whose principal objective is simply to boil water and produce steam?
And we can all kind of feel that.
Yeah,
right?
like we
You go to
mine
the
that
dentist,
shit
get an
easily.
X-ray, they put
I
that
mean, it's
heavy
just
vest on you.
mineable like
This
any
is
other
kinda serious.
fucking material
Dentist leaves the room,
in the fucking
closes
ground.
the door. Click. What bombarded your body in that moment was the same amount of radiation that hits your body every single day. It's everywhere. Radiation is impossible to escape.
Correct.
Hitting you right now, coming from the sun and the ground, and in
Yeah.
some places where people spend a lot of time, there's way more of it. It is a long 3-month radiation-soaked journey to climb Mount Everest. Once your flight has touched down in Kathmandu, you've made the 2-week trek to base camp, spent 7 weeks getting used to the altitude, getting to the summit, getting back to Kathmandu, and taking a plane back home. A climber has absorbed 3 years worth of radiation that someone at normal sea level altitude will absorb. The more atmosphere between you and the sun, the less radiation gets through and hits you. For every 5,000 feet above sea level, your radiation exposure doubles. Yet, mountaineers, like those that climb Everest, and the Sherpas or guides that basically live at Everest Base Camp 3 or 4 months of the year, don't have a higher risk of cancer or live shorter lives. People that live in Denver, a mile above sea level, have some of the lowest rates of cancer in the US. And that is because the human body has figured out how to live bathed in radiation. You have nerves in your fingers to tell you to stop touching something if it's hot, right? Stop, or that's going to become a problem. But because it's impossible to avoid radiation, your body evolved ways to live with it. Over the course of 10 days, you pick up about 0.2 units of background radiation. At Everest Base Camp, it's 2.5. The 80,000 residents closest to Fukushima after the meltdown, 10 to 50. The workers at Fukushima, 250. What has not been widely reported, because it is kind of a boring headline, there has been no rise in cancer, death, sickness, nothing from Fukushima. Zero. Study after study has shown no effects from the radiation leak.
That there have been no adverse health effects documented.
Still today, only 50 shore deaths have been recorded from Chernobyl. 2/3 of those came from the firefighters or the operators on site that were often exposed directly to within feet of the reactor core.
Yeah.
There has been a significant increase in thyroid cancer from Chernobyl, which sounds scary, but it is a cancer that's easily handled and usually carries no symptoms. The thyroid cancers from Chernobyl have not led to a significant loss of life years. These circles represent all the deaths from
as you can see, they are tracking, right, because cancer in a sense, radiation does cause cancer, right? Because it's destroying your cells.
Between 1969 and 2000.
That's why
Coal,
radiation's
oil,
linked to
hydro.
cancer.
Dams
in a
do break
sense.
occasionally. Natural gas, nuclear. Way too big. Nuclear. Wind? Solar. And what really slowed things here in the U.S., 3 Mile Island, exactly 0 fatalities. No health impact at all. It was benign. It wasn't the actual disasters. It was this. This, made law on May 5th, 1975, sent the U.S. nuclear industry to its short, fast death. These are the rules for building, modifying, or extending the life of a nuclear reactor. In 1970, there were 400
I thought it was the
environmentalists
who were trying to like stop all the fucking all the nuclear projects
300
and
new
stuff.
rules that had to be satisfied if you wanted to flip the switch on. This is the critical phrase in that document: as low as is reasonably achievable, also known as a LAR, which says that every bit of radiation, no matter how small, adds a proportionate bump in your lifetime chance of cancer, and those bumps add up over your whole life. In other words, there's no amount of radiation that's ever considered risk-free. and each exposure stacks on top of the last. So if climbing Everest once gave you a 1% chance of getting cancer, then going up a second time now puts you at 2%, a third time puts you at 3%. This is called the linear no threshold model. And because of that, a nuclear plant must get radiation output to a level that is as low as is reasonably achievable. If you can lower radiation exposure that might occur to the public, workers, anyone by any amount, then you must do it. What's interesting about that is the Nuclear Regulatory Commission admitted in 2021 that they're not sure the linear no threshold model makes sense. It's simply better to be safe than sorry. So if you enshrine that as the guiding principle in the rulebook for building nuclear power plants, anyone was able to challenge the design or plans of a project. This could be a little better, and this is a real example. What happens if a 2-foot section of that pipe disappeared? Engineers were like, what? Sections of pipe don't just disappear. We can't model that. If there is no level of radiation that is safe, as low as reasonably achievable, is wide open to interpretation. That is exactly what happened, and there's an immense amount of clean data that shows it. Challenges and rules ramped up, and that is exactly why the time to build a plant absolutely skyrocketed, taking cost to build along with it, because time, in this case, really did, and in a big way, equal money.
Well, yeah, it's very costly to build a plant.
Deliver electricity to customers. The amount of money a power plant is going to make over its lifetime is very predictable. But get the building timeline or cost and the predictability goes out the
time it takes to build one of these things
is
fucking
financed
long.
Before it makes a single dollar. Loans are
right,
taken
that's
out
why
upfront,
making
and
the renewable
that
stuff
money from the moment it's
is
received,
faster
all through
in a
construction,
sense.
not just once the plant starts running. So the longer the plant isn't running,
Because
the more
to build
it has
out
to
the
pay,
whole
the more interest it
infrastructure
has to pay, the less attractive
the
it is to
nuclear
build
plant
one.
is fucking
But what
timely.
does it actually cost a major nuclear project to be delayed, let's say, 1 month? The U.S. Congressional Budget Office says $44 million. There are countless stories of construction crews finishing a part of a plant only to have to completely rip it out a few weeks later and rebuild the same thing, just in a slightly different way after a new rule came in. About one rule or standard was being created every day between 1973 and 1978.
Yeah, so they stopped.
Think about that.
So they
You
stopped
designed and
doing
planned your
it
reactor
because
in
they kept
1971.
it
By
didn't
1978,
make
all
any
these
sense
new
to keep
requirements had to be
rebuilding
satisfied.
it constantly.
These plants all began construction between 1972 and 1975. Shoreham in New York, 12-year delay, canceled. Midland in Michigan, 13-year delay, canceled. Sequoia in Tennessee, 8-year delay. Comanche Peak in Texas, 10 years. Seabrook in New Hampshire, 14 years. The utility went bankrupt, the first utility bankruptcy since the Great Depression.
We're here to review the licensing and whether the Seabrook plant received its full power license on March 1st.
Well, I mean, that's what happens when you have politicians who are so wishy-washy and like fucking with you.
If you're an investor or utility and you watch this happen to everyone building a nuclear reactor, would you try to build one? You would not. $44 million per month is too much. But then add in $20 million in lost revenue from not operating for that month, and every month of delay adds about 3 months of operating the plant at full capacity flawlessly to get back that 1 month of delay.
The capital cost of building a nuclear power has increased tenfold over the last decade.
That financial math stopped working, a large part of it due to the increase in materials needed. The amount of concrete, steel, and cable required to get a license doubled.
Oh, yeah,
but the number of man-hours required to build a plant went up 600%, all during the exact time when interest rates in the U.S. were exploding. An investor in 1980 could buy government bonds and get 12% interest. Why give a ton of money
basically,
to a nuclear
inflation
was
it, right? Prices were increasing, and they were like, yeah, there's no way we could do this.
Died over the course of about
it's getting
10 years,
out of hand. We can't build
back.
this shit. It's
By
too
the time
fucking
interest
costly.
rates came back down in the 90s, suppliers, experts, engineers retired or out of business. Building a new plant or reactor was almost a grassroots movement again. Now, to be fair, perhaps all of these rules did in fact lead to safer nuclear plants. Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, Fukushima, they all caught major headlines, but the loss of life.
I mean, they're about to turn on
any nuclear reactor.
Who was it, Taiwan or something? Thailand? I forgot.
Frankly,
One of those places were about to open one of their
come
nuclear
with
plants
a major
back up.
trade-off that affects billions of people.
Because they
this
need the
thing could
power.
The entire city of San Francisco. It's the most recent reactor built in the U.S., turned on in 2023. It is the fourth of 4 reactors on a site about the size of 4 Central Parks. Together, those 4 reactors could power all of Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens. Everything. Homes, factories, office buildings, with a little room to spare. This density, this tiny land footprint, the complete lack of emissions, it's as clean as solar and wind.
Correct.
The stuff that comes out of the top is just water vapor. This is what makes nuclear so attractive to so many people, especially when we look at the alternatives. Assuming very sunny skies, solar would require at least 25 times the
that
land.
stuff.
Assuming
Yeah,
solid
they're just
wind,
trying
wind
to
turbines
cool
would require
off the
300 times the amount of
the.
land. Natural gas would actually take up
Right,
less
they're
land,
trying to
a
cool
lot
off
less.
the
Coal about half.
the
They require big
turbines
coal
and
yards to feed
engines
the
and
furnace.
stuff. Right,
Right
all
here,
the
we're gonna leave
machines.
coal and
So
natural
that's
gas
why you got a
behind.
bunch of
Amazing,
fucking
stable,
right,
and absolutely critical sources
water
of electricity.
vapor because they're
In fact, the
cooling
first
off the
video I ever
machines.
put out on this channel was about natural gas. But what comes out of them in addition to electricity is not what most people would prefer. Even if the sun shined perfectly all day, every day in a place near enough to New York that a solar farm could deliver electricity over a reasonable distance of transmission lines, the sun goes down at night, which means a big chunk of the energy the solar panels collected would need to be stored in batteries. Many of them, increasing.
I mean,
the
it's
land
the same
footprint
with
of the solar
data
option
centers
by
and
at least
how some of
5%,
those data
which is enough
centers are
base to build
submerged in
4
fucking
more
water,
nuclear
right?
reactors.
Because they
And
got to
what
cool
is
off those
often not
machines
mentioned
somehow.
with solar is that whatever in the 150 square miles that was soaking up the sun, the solar panels are now soaking up, is going to find life to be much different, maybe impossible. All of this is the same for wind. It doesn't blow all the time, or it might blow at the wrong time, located too far away from the place that needs to use it. But the footprint of each windmill is pretty small, so the actual land that's underneath can, in theory, be used for other things, like grazing cattle. This is the kind of thing they do in Texas, which has by far the most windmills of any U.S. state. Texas, the oil state. Believe that. But with wildlife, what is rarely talked about with windmills, two groups of animals love to fly in the air column dominated by the blades of a windmill, about 100 to 250 feet in the air where wind is most consistent. Wind is a transportation system for bugs and birds, and wind farms are strategically placed right in the middle of the highway. Blades become caked with bugs. Companies have sprouted up just to provide the service of blade cleaning to wind farms because the amount of bugs they cake up can lower the efficiency of a windmill by 20 to 25%. Bugs are a critical part of the food chain. Everything else relies on them. And the birds?
These turbines in Northern California kill on average 80 golden eagles a year. In the South,
they kill
this project kills fewer birds,
That's
but at
not
a higher
good.
rate.
It's the big protected birds. Eagles, hawks, not like your little
and
sparrow
you
kind
get
of
the
neighborhood
bald.
birds
Yeah, that's
that
not the
litter
good, right?
base
You get
areas
the
of
you
windmills,
get the
which are all made
get
of
the
concrete.
animals you don't want
Each
that
one
going
sitting on
into
a
the
12-foot
fucking
deep, 50-foot wide slab. Cabling, fiberglass, aluminum, transportation, everything that goes into building a wind farm puts them at least on par with all the materials required.
Yeah, this is why Trump always makes
And
the
each windmill has a
makes that
lifespan of
fucking
only
joke
20 to
about fucking
25
birds
years,
and shit in
compared to
the
a
in the
nuclear plant,
windmills.
which runs for 80 years.
Wait, he's not
Maybe
wrong.
We can go on and on, looking at the
It's
different
funny,
trade-offs
but he's
between
not
all
wrong.
these ways to generate electricity. They do exist both
It
ways.
fucks with
It's important to
the
acknowledge.
it
But
fucks
when
with the
you really
machinery
back
because
out
you got to
the
clean
safety
that
aspect,
shit.
the decades of
right.
data on radiation,
It makes
the low land
the
requirement,
machine less
how
efficient because you got a
reliable
bunch of that
electricity for
shit
nuclear
caked on
is.
the fucking
It's
machine now.
challenging to come up with a great reason to build something else instead of nuclear plants. The one that usually bookends this discussion is nuclear waste. What to do with it? What if someone steals it? No one is going to steal these heavy concrete blocks that encase the spent nuclear fuel. Stored above ground, you can walk up and touch them. Even if they did manage to lug one off unnoticed, they'd have to figure out a way to make the fuel inside 20 times more potent. Something Iran's military has been trying very hard and unsuccessfully to do for decades.
Yeah,
each nuclear
because
reactor
fucking
creates about one
Trump
per year. That's the
they keep
cost to give a
fucking
million
with them.
homes
Because
emission-free
everyone's afraid
electricity.
they're trying to
And
make
there are
like
compelling
nuclear
answers to
weapons
all of
with
those
it.
questions that piggyback off the radiation bit we talked about earlier.
Especially
Ultimately,
from Iran,
again,
where
it boils
they
down
already
to
have
the fear.
problems with
We can all
America
feel it.
and the Western
Maybe
countries,
it was the
right?
Simpsons' fault.
Yeah, well, it's always been like that.
Maybe it was the use and testing of atomic weapons and the imagery around all of that. Maybe it was the nuclear industry's fault, insisting that nuclear is fail-safe, nothing would ever go wrong, and then things went wrong at a bunch of nuclear plants. What else are you lying about? Perhaps smaller is the key, because when a nuclear submarine smashes up through Arctic ice, the nuclear reactor that powers it is fine. In service for over 70 years, there has never been a problem, let alone a meltdown on a nuclear-powered submarine or aircraft carrier. And we're not just talking a handful of these things.
Oh yeah, that's
More than
right. I
200,
forgot. Some of our
traveling
carriers
millions
are
of miles
nuclear
around the
powered as
globe,
well. I
all
forgot
fitted
about that.
with a nuclear reactor that produces about 8% of the power the newest reactor in the U.S. we looked at earlier does. Going up and down in the ocean, fast, slow, vertical, horizontal, These are a critical part of the nuclear defense system. They have to work. This, basically a nuclear submarine engine, is what they're talking about if you've heard the term small modular reactor, or SMR. Putting a submarine reactor on land and doing it exactly the way the Navy does it, which is where the modular comes from, in modular reactor. Build the whole thing, all the pieces in a factory, and then ship them to where they need to be installed. As opposed to today, where a nuclear reactor is bespoke and almost entirely built on site. This cookie cutter approach, every reactor is the same, keeps costs down. If something breaks on one, you know right where to look on all the others. This is what GE says the one they're building in Ontario, Canada will look like. At about 5%, the physical size of a normal nuclear plant.
That's supposed to be like some futuristic goddamn nuclear plant.
For these and would love to have their own SMR. That's one of the reasons nuclear has become a hot topic again. We might be near it. The CEO of
I
GE
mean, right? With, like I said, with that one
one
of the countries started opening up their nuclear plant back up because they need the power. So
maybe, just maybe,
I mean, with all the
nuclear days.
Data centers that Trump wants to build and stuff, I mean, you could see a demand for nuclear power, right?
For us to get past. We'll see. My instincts say the U.S. is turning the corner on nuclear, but you never know until it's done. Fear is an extremely powerful motivator.
Correct.
Seabrook's opponents, who profess concern over the environment,
and then
continue their crusade
especially when you have certain people who, right? I would suspect you have certain energy companies that don't want nuclear power to prosper.
This
right, because it would hurt their bottom line.
Has already been through some 17 years.
Or you have eco-terrorists who fucking want to do bullshit, right?
Every hurdle, every obstacle thrown in its path. And these obstacles have been costly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll see. Or you have politicians who have some ulterior motive because they don't really understand nuclear power, right? Yeah, we'll see. Funny how a nuclear operator receives less radiation than a flight attendant. Yeah. Makes me wonder if big oil lobbyists were involved in hyper-regulation nuclear energy. That too, right? The oil industry. Or the charcoal industry, right? The coal, sorry. The coal burning industry. Clean burning coal. Oh, fuck you. Was that what Trump said? Oh, man. The real scam is the same people that made the rules and filed the lawsuits that made nuclear prohibitively expensive now cite that expense as a reason not to build the nuclear, correct? Right, it's a revolving door, right? It's unfortunate, but that is what politics and what our government does to each other, right? It's this never-ending Ouroboros cycle of fucking doing stupid shit to each other. Even though we should be advancing, right, for the best of the human nation, right, for the human race, or for the sovereign nation or whatever. But nope, they don't do that. All they care about is we can't do this because of money. Oh, we need to make more money. Number goes up and down. We need more numbers go up. Oh, this number needs to go down. We need this number to go down. Okay, now this number needs up. Right. Fuck these guys, man. Anyways, there you have it. If you want to check the Maxonomics, that was pretty good. He did a pretty in-depth overview of it. There you have it. I will, like I said, I'll leave all the links in the description if you want to check the videos. And yeah. There you have it. Do your own research as well. Have fun.